In today's Destiny Friday video, I'm going to address the multi-die advantage. In other words, the hidden power of cards that roll in multiple dice as opposed to a single die. Now, while the expected value of these cards is the same from a mathematical standpoint, the practical EV of such cards is actually significantly higher. And that's why some of Destiny's most infamous cards were ones that rolled in multiple dice. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Star Wars Destiny folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and the Commando cast, and thanks so much for checking in here, and happy Destiny Friday. Now, today's video is one that I've been promising for about 2 weeks now. We're talking about the multi-die advantage, and this is a theory episode, and I have to admit I put some slides. I probably put a little too much work into this one, but I wanted to make sure that I could accurately convey not just the math, but kind of the concept behind what I'm trying to say. So specifically, again, I'm talking about the multi-die advantage. In other words, the additional power that's kind of embedded in cards that roll in multiple dice. Now, just quick clarification here, technically an elite character is rolling in multiple dice. I get that. But what I'm really talking about are cards that roll in kind of like nested die. So something like a Mega Blaster Troopers, right? Mega Blaster Troopers was a big bad from the day. The card was a good card, right? So Mega Blaster Troopers rolls in its own die, and then another FOST die, and then if you can spot a leader, which you usually would in the way that you would build this, and they'd also have 2 focus sides, which would work better, you'd roll an additional FOST die. So it would come in with 3 die. Now, there's a couple practical overall reasons why having a lot of dice in the pool, regardless of what they're associated to, right? Having dice spam typically works, right? Unless there's some sort of like remove all die from the pool type of card, which to my knowledge, at least in the ARH era, we don't have. It's harder to remove multiple dice. So you know, if you were to put the value into rolling in one big chonky die versus having 4 or 5 piddly die, you're going to be able to resolve more of those. They're not going to get removed. Focus also then carries a potentially larger impact there because, you know, a lot of these roll-in dice typically have 2 blanks, if not more, but then having a focus really takes that out of it. And then there's a lot of practical reasons that everyone who's here at this point really understands on why going wide is typically better in this game than going tall. Again, you have I know it's not legal anymore, but you have a card like Headstrong, something like that. It makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. But what I wanted to do was actually kind of talk about the mathematical side of the hidden EV. So just a primer here, right? So when we talk about EV or expected value, what we're really saying is, if I roll this die in, or if I put this die on the table, what do I expect to get out of that die? And then, of course, all of the die or dice associated with the port or a card or whatever can then give you that card's nested EV in terms of what you're paying for it and all that. So again, let's go ahead and pull up Mega Blaster Troopers, right? If we look at the Mega Blaster Troopers die itself, we expect to get, you look at the 1 side, the 2 side. To be fair, the 3 side there I am valuing as a 3 in terms of indirect. Indirect I actually think is probably valued at like 0.8 to 0.9 nowadays, probably somewhere in that range. But I go ahead and give it a value of 3 just to make easy math. Then the 2 disrupt and the 2 blanks. So you get a total value of 8 divided by 6, meaning the EV of the die is around 1.33 is what we would expect to see. Now, the FOSS die is 12110. Remember that 2 that you pay 1 for because you're paying 1 into it, you're going to subtract 1, right? So it's not just the total value on the die, which would be 1221. It's 1, in this case, it's 12110. So a FOSS die has an EV of 0.83. And then if you look at Mega Blasters as a whole, you would assume all 3 dice comes out to an EV of 3. Right? For each time you activate Mega Blaster Troopers, you would expect to get an EV of 3 out of that, right, on average. All right, so with all that said and baselined on how we calculate EV, and again, most of people know what we're talking about, but I just wanted to make sure we're baselined on the conversation. So now what I want to do is actually go to a theoretical example where we compare a support that rolls in 3 dice that have a 11100. I think I left out a 1 there. 4 1s and 2 zeros for a net EV on each die of 0.66, but that support rolls in 3 of them. And then we're going to compare that to, again, a theoretical die that has 3s on all sides with 2 blanks. Also then for a net EV of 2 in this case, being that if you compare that to the 3 die rolling in at 0.66, that would also be 2. Now, you also can look at the chance of a smart reroll, or in the case of the single die, just a reroll, because you would, there's only 1 die there. On a reroll, the chance of getting, because you're only rerolling blanks in this case, right, is the intelligent smart reroll. You end up with a single reroll EV of 2.67 on your single die. And you notice that also works out to be exactly the same for the wide die, the 3 die case. So what we see here is that my pure mathematical argument for EV is actually not holding up, right? If you do a smart reroll where you only reroll your blanks, you actually expect to see the same EV out of the single die as you do the wide die case or the wide support. And that's true. But obviously we already talked about a couple things of you would only need 1 removal to remove the 3, whereas you would have to remove multiple die to get the other one. But there's also another part in this of kind of the sub tiers of your value. So if we look in the case here so this is a spreadsheet I built. Like I said, I put probably too much work into this. What I did is I simulated 1,000 dice rolls and looked at the EV of the initial roll on the left side, and then the EV of the smart reroll on the right side. And what you see here actually is very, it means I did my spreadsheet correctly, because you see that the effective EV of 1,000 die roll simulation is 2.04. So it matches the 2, which is what we, just theoretically calculating it, came out with 2. I got 2.04 from the simulation. Okay. Now, if we then do the smart reroll simulation where we only reroll the blanks, I actually got 2.667, and we would expect to see 2.67. Okay, so not only can I do math, I can do a spreadsheet. Yay me. Okay, now let's go ahead with all that said then and compare it to the EV of, so what you see now on the top is what we were just talking about, which is the 3 wide, okay, on the top of each. And then on the bottom, what you see is the reroll of the single die. So again, you see that the effective EVs are roughly the same. 2.042 versus 1.94. Again, it's basically saying that the effective EV of the first roll in both cases is 2, and the effective EV is roughly 2.6, 2.7 for both. Okay, but what I want to draw your eye to is the difference in the counts. So if you look at the 2 bottom, what you see are 351, so 35.1% chance of getting 0, and a 65-ish% chance of getting 3 on your single die. Okay, makes sense. On the reroll, then that goes from 12.7% on the 0 to 87.3%, assuming you do your reroll. Okay. But if you then compare to the top, look that you also have numbers now in the 1, 2, and 3 tier. Okay. So whereas on the bottom, you effectively have a 12.7% chance of missing after 1 reroll. You don't have that same thing carry in the multi-die scenario, because you would have to have all of those dice roll blanks effectively to get your 0. So whereas in the single die case, you have roughly a 13% chance of getting 0, look again at the top where you have a 0.2% chance of getting a 0, only a 2.7% chance of getting a 1, and then you have a 27% chance of actually getting value of 2. So again, while the net EV, the net expected value of that roll as a whole in an instant, is matched, you see that your actual curve on the multi-die roll gives you more inherent consistent value than the single die does, right? And this again is ignoring all of the other things that we already talked about, such as removal and all that, right? Okay, so now let's go ahead and apply what I talked about here to Mega Blasters. So what you see on Mega Blasters at a 4-drop, okay, 4-drop support, is you see an effective EV, again with my 1,000 roll simulation, of 2.985. So right at that 3 value that we calculated just theoretically. And then if we do a smart reroll, we actually get an effective EV of just over 4. Okay? So your effective reroll of just over 4, again, this is ignoring focus, right? The 2 focus or whatever, ignoring all this stuff of that, is saying that on one reroll, which remember, you can also reroll other die on the table with a single card to reroll, which is really good, again, if you're running multi-die support cards. So I should say several multi-die support cards. Okay, you have a 3 and a 4. Okay, and that's for a 4-cost support. Now let's jump forward to Tusken Camp, which is kind of the lightning rod for this. So Tusken Camp was very recently finally banned in ARH. Play only if you spot a yellow character, and this is the eroded, by the way. Play only if you spot a yellow character. After you activate the support, roll 2 set-aside Tusken die into your pool, and then remove those dice, both of them, to gain 1 resource. So you also have a contingent case on this 3-drop support, by the way. A contingent case on this 3-drop support that if you do roll 2 blanks on your roll and die, or even a shield or something like that, you can absolutely remove them, just convert that into an immediate, basically equivalent 50% hit. Okay, and I'm not even budgeting that into the calculation. So the sheet here you see is straight up EV. So the Tusken Camp on single reroll has a 3.152 effective EV on a single, right, and that's on the roll-in. And then on the smart reroll, you see 3.547, right? So Mega Blaster Troopers, again, now this was an FFG card, different power level. I want to point that out, right? But in that case, you had an effective EV roll-in of 3 on a 4-drop support that also required a spot to do it. And your first reroll was 4 EV, again, on a 4-drop support. You then go to, again, back to Tusken Camp, which is a 3-drop that came in for 3.15 EV, right? So slightly over. And then on the reroll came in for 3.54. Again, remembering that you've got 2 3 sides that you can flip to when you have an abundance of money, and you can actually remove these die to get guaranteed money. So the effective EV is significantly higher than that. And then again, if you break it down, you look at the counts, you have a basically 0% chance of it. It is not 0, but it's so far low that on the reroll that it's not even measured within the rounding that I have, right? So Tusken Camp has basically a 0% chance of getting a 0, 0.2% chance. That's not 20%. That is 0.2% chance of getting a value of 1 on a reroll, 4% chance of getting a 3, 39% chance of getting a 3, 39% chance, 53% chance of landing a 4 in terms of value, right? So again, if you look at that roll down, the re-roll breakdown of all the slots, that is crazy value. That is insane value. And it's all supplied by the fact that it's the multiple dice being rolled in, giving you that spread, right? If you were to compare this to, like, let's say a 3-drop support that could provide even like a 4 die, like a 4-4-4-4-0-0 or something like that, even whatever the math would come out to effectively be an effective 4 EV, this would actually still be better with the multi-die. That's what I'm trying to show. So anyway, I wanted to throw some math at you all out there to kind of put in perspective of not just from a practical standpoint that we all get, but mathematically, when you really break down the EV curve, how much more unlocked value comes from these multi-die supports. And it shouldn't be a surprise then why people gravitate towards these. And then when you consider and remember, in this, I'm valuing a resource at 1. And there's a very real argument that with the way things are nowadays, the resources are actually probably more than 1. Like almost certainly more than 1. I don't know what it would be, considering that we usually base everything off of the cost of a resource. So maybe everything else is lower, whatever. But yeah, anyway, hopefully I've shown my point. Hopefully you enjoyed the data. I'm gonna end it there, but I think I've really illustrated the point that the power of these supports is really, I think, not being accurately measured when we collectively are designing and evaluating these cards. We say, okay, well, I've got an EV here. It's cost me 3. I'm going to get this out of it, blah, blah, blah. I don't think we're accurately doing that in terms of understanding really it's not area under the curve, but understanding the curve to get there. So anyway, That'll be my piece today. Thanks for joining me for Destiny Friday, my friends. Leave me a comment if you enjoyed the work that went into this. I would really appreciate that. Go Commando.